Have you ever spoken your heart only to feel unheard, unseen, or even dismissed? Have you tried to stand your ground, but somehow ended up apologizing? If that sounds like you, then stay with me, my friend, because this video could change everything for you. My dear friends, every single day, many of us struggle to express our needs. We try to set boundaries, but we often feel guilty, nervous, or even ashamed when we do. We fear conflict. We fear rejection. And in that silence, our self-respect begins to fade. But what if you had the right words? What if, instead of freezing or faking a smile, you could speak calmly, firmly, and respectfully? What if a few well-chosen phrases could protect your peace and earn you the respect you deserve? In this video, we will explore 8 powerful phrases that psychologists say can help you set strong emotional boundaries. Phrases that can be used with family, with coworkers, even in romantic relationships. Not to be rude, but to be real. Not to push away, but to protect yourself. So if you're tired of being misunderstood, if you're ready to speak up with confidence and calm, then this video is your safe space. And if you're new here, I invite you to subscribe, because every story we share is crafted to heal, to guide, and to help you grow. My dear friends, there are moments in life when something inside you feels off. You are in a conversation, maybe with a friend or a coworker, and they say something that crosses a line. You feel it in your chest, that slight tightening, or maybe in your stomach, a quiet discomfort. But instead of saying something, you smile, you nod, and you tell yourself it's not a big deal. These are the moments that matter. These are the tiny violations that pile up over time and leave you emotionally exhausted, because when we fail to acknowledge our discomfort, when we ignore our need for space, we begin to teach others that our boundaries are negotiable, and slowly, we start losing pieces of ourselves. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're at work and a colleague constantly interrupts you. At first, you brush it off. Maybe they're just excited. Maybe they didn't mean it. But when it happens again and again and again, and you still say nothing, you start feeling invisible, like your voice doesn't matter. Or maybe you're with family and someone makes a joke at your expense. It sounds lighthearted. They even laugh, but inside it hurts. You want to say something, but you hold it in. You fear being labeled too sensitive or too dramatic. So you let it go. And in that silence, your self-respect begins to erode. These signs are subtle but powerful. You might notice that after certain conversations, you feel drained, or you replay moments in your head, wishing you had said something. That's not weakness. That's your mind trying to alert you, trying to tell you that something wasn't right. Sometimes it's even in close relationships. A partner who dismisses your opinion, a friend who always chooses what to do, and you begin to shrink a little, day by day. Not because you want to, but because it feels safer to avoid conflict. And let's not forget the guilt. Oh yes, the guilt that follows any attempt to speak up. You finally find the courage to say, "Please don't talk to me like that." And then you spend the next hour questioning yourself. Was I too harsh? Did I overreact? Should I apologize? This is what boundary confusion looks like. It's not just about the words we do or don't say. It's about the emotional weight we carry when our needs are not met. When we prioritize others' comfort over our own inner peace, you begin to notice that certain people in your life always push your limits, and yet you remain silent because confrontation feels risky. But silence has its own cost. It costs you clarity, it costs you peace, and eventually it costs you self-respect. Your body knows before your mind does. That's why you feel tension in your shoulders, a sudden headache, or emotional fatigue after certain interactions. These are not coincidences. They are warnings, and the more we ignore them, the louder they become. You don't have to be aggressive, you don't have to shout, but you do have to notice. You have to recognize when someone is consistently stepping into your space without permission, and realize that your discomfort is a signal, not a flaw. The problem is, most of us were never taught how to respond. We were told to be nice, to be agreeable, to not make a scene. But being kind doesn't mean being quiet when you're hurting. Being kind also means being kind to yourself. So if you've ever walked away from a situation and felt something was wrong, If you've ever questioned your right to draw a line, just know that you are not alone, and more importantly, you are not overreacting. This is the foundation of emotional boundaries. It begins with awareness, with honoring your own signals. Before we even learn the words to use, we must first learn to listen to the voice inside us, because that voice is always speaking, always trying to protect you, and the more you listen, the clearer your path becomes. My dear friends, when someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries, it does more than just frustrate you. It chips away at your self-worth, one uncomfortable moment at a time, because each time you stay quiet when you want to speak, each time you laugh off disrespect just to keep the peace, a part of you starts to believe that your feelings are less important. Emotional damage from broken boundaries isn't always loud. It doesn't always show up as tears or fights. Sometimes it hides behind overthinking. You start to analyze every interaction. You wonder if you were too much or not enough. You question whether you deserve to be treated that way in the first place. And that is where the real danger lies, not just in how others treat you, but in how you begin to treat yourself. You silence your needs, you suppress your voice, and soon your inner dialogue becomes filled with doubt and insecurity. You tell yourself you're just being dramatic. You convince yourself that you're hard to love, and without realizing it, you slowly adapt to discomfort. You adjust your personality to avoid confrontation. You become smaller, softer, more agreeable, not because it feels good, but because it feels safer. And then comes the anxiety, that quiet unease that shows up before certain conversations, that fear of being misunderstood or dismissed. You rehearse your thoughts 100 times before saying a single word. Your heart races, your voice shakes, and even after the moment has passed, you carry the weight of it all for hours, sometimes days. There is also a deep loneliness that comes from being unheard. Even when you're surrounded by people, you feel disconnected, like your presence doesn't truly matter. Because true connection requires honesty, and honesty feels dangerous when boundaries are not respected. Many people walk around with this hidden pain, smiling on the outside while carrying a storm within. They avoid difficult conversations, not because they don't care, but because they've been conditioned to believe that their voice creates problems instead of solutions. This emotional suppression becomes a habit. You say yes when you mean no. You accept apologies that never come, and you forgive actions that continue to repeat. You hold it all in until you start to forget what it feels like to be respected. Your mental health begins to suffer. It becomes harder to sleep, harder to focus, harder to feel calm, because your mind is always in defense mode, always wondering when the next boundary will be crossed, always preparing for damage control, even in moments that should feel peaceful. And sadly, this affects how you show up in every area of life. You hesitate to take opportunities. You fear speaking up in meetings. You hold back your ideas, your joy, your truth, because somewhere deep inside, you've learned that your safety depends on silence. But my friend, that is not the life you were meant to live. You were not made to shrink. You were not born to be background noise in your own story. And yet, this is the quiet reality for so many kind, thoughtful souls who simply want to be respected and heard. You start to lose trust, not just in others, but in yourself. You question your instincts, your emotions, your memories. You second-guess the boundary violations, telling yourself maybe it wasn't that bad, but deep down, you know it was. That knowing doesn't fade, it lingers. And until you give yourself permission to honor it, to feel it, to name it, and to respond to it, that emotional burden will continue to grow. So many people suffer silently, not because they are weak, but because they are too strong for too long, and the cost of that silence is too high. It's your peace, your identity, your emotional freedom. You deserve to live with clarity, with confidence, with calm. You deserve to be surrounded by people who honor your words, who value your space, and that journey begins the moment you decide to stop making excuses for the pain you feel. My dear friends, healing begins the moment you realize that your voice is not a weapon. It is a bridge, a tool, a sacred expression of your truth. And setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. It's about inviting the right kind of respect into your life. The first shift that must happen is internal. You must stop believing that saying no makes you a bad person. No is not rejection. No is redirection. It protects your energy, your time, your peace. And when it comes to boundaries, psychologists often emphasize language because language carries energy. The way you say something determines how it is received. You can be firm and kind at the same time. Let me now give you the first phrase. It may sound simple, but it is deeply powerful. You can say, "I'm not comfortable with that." These words are clear, respectful, and leave no room for argument. They put your emotional boundary forward without aggression. And the beauty is you don't owe anyone an explanation afterward. Phrase number 2 is, "I need time to think about this." This phrase creates space between you and pressure. It helps you pause before giving in to something you're unsure about. It gives you emotional breathing room, and people learn that your decisions come from reflection, not impulse. Another effective phrase is, "That doesn't work for me." It's polite but final. It doesn't invite debate. It doesn't insult or blame. It simply states your boundary with clarity. Now here's one that is especially helpful in emotional conversations. "I hear you, but I need to do what's right for me." This one validates the other person while still protecting your stance. It reduces tension and keeps you grounded in your own truth. One of the most challenging areas is dealing with emotional guilt. That's why psychologists recommend using phrases that reduce blame. Like, "This is what I need right now." It's a self-focused statement. It doesn't attack the other person. It simply shines a light on your current emotional requirement. Another phrase that brings instant clarity is, "I don't find that helpful." You can use this when someone offers unsolicited advice or brings negativity into your space. It's direct, it's honest, and it tells the other person that their input is not welcome in that moment. Sometimes silence itself is not enough, so you need to use a phrase like, "Let's take a break from this conversation." This shows maturity and emotional intelligence. It gives both sides space. It also teaches people that you are not available for endless conflict. And lastly, one of the most empowering phrases you can use is, "I've decided to handle this in my own way." This phrase closes the door on interference. It puts the power back in your hands. It tells others that your life choices are yours to make, and you're not looking for approval. Using these phrases may feel awkward at first. You may tremble, you may hesitate, but remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. Each time you speak up, your inner voice grows stronger. And over time, you'll notice a shift in how people treat you. They'll begin to approach you with more respect. They'll pause before overstepping. And even if some people resist or get upset, you'll feel calmer inside because you'll know you honored your truth. This is not just about words. It's about reclaiming emotional authority over your life. It's about choosing calm over chaos, clarity over confusion. And most importantly, it's about showing up for yourself again and again until the world learns that your peace is non-negotiable. And my friend, if you've made it this far in the video, you're not just watching for phrases. You're watching because you're ready to change your life. So if you haven't yet, I gently invite you to subscribe, because each video we share is here to support your growth, your healing, and your voice. My dear friends, there comes a moment in every journey when silence is no longer strength, when your soul refuses to stay quiet, when your heart whispers, "No more shrinking, no more bending, just to be accepted." You were not born to be everyone's comfort zone. You were not created to carry the weight of unspoken pain. Your voice was never meant to be buried under guilt. It was meant to rise, to resonate, to reclaim space. These phrases, these boundaries, they are not just tools. They are your return to self-respect. They are the language of someone who has decided to stop bleeding in silence. So the next time you feel that familiar tightness in your chest, the next time your truth trembles on the edge of your lips, remember this: you don't need permission to protect your peace. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to be free. And if today's video awakened something in you, if it reminded you that your story still matters, then I ask you not just to subscribe, but to choose yourself every single day, because healing isn't loud sometimes. It begins with one sentence, spoken softly, but from the deepest part of your soul.